Get Ripple, the bright new drink with that ring-a-ding flavor. Ripple.
Okay, we are back.
Part 2.
Ready for round 2.
First, we need to do a little celebration with cheersing with our team. Try that again.
Try that again. We've only been at it for a year. Let's see if we can get through a whole sentence.
First, we need to cheers with some champagne to 1 year officially of the Ripple podcast. Woohoo!
Of flat champagne that we opened a while ago.
Well, it was in the refrigerator. It's totally flat.
It tastes good.
It tastes like champagne.
It's
just
totally fine.
no bubbles.
We are not above boxed wine.
And it's the Ripple podcast. I mean, I feel like flat champagne is pretty appropriate for it.
It is. Like if we had a signature drink for the entire podcast itself.
It would be boxed wine and flat champagne.
Yes.
Yeah, or maybe stale beer.
No, we're not that bad.
A little skunky stale beer.
Maybe. Depends on the day.
Well, we did it 1 year. I can't.
All right.
Okay, so I have talked to a few people, and they're super excited about part 2.
Oh, okay.
So we've gotten some messages saying like, oh my gosh, hurry up, because I want to know what happened.
Well.
And I do too. And I will say that I kind of did some snooping.
Did you?
Because I didn't read any articles. I went strictly looking for images to post on our Instagram.
Oh, okay.
And holy shit, I need some explaining of what I was looking at.
Actually really good, because now when I get to a part that needs to be described, you can describe to me what you saw.
Okay. It was.
Because there's a certain thing that we need to describe.
Okay. Yeah. I can't wait to hear it. I didn't do any reading because I don't read. But I looked at a lot of pictures.
Okay. Well, that
ready?
works.
Go.
So we left off with the tragic death of Colleen Conaway, remember?
She jumped off the
parking structure.
Stories?
I think
3 or 4?
Yeah, long,
Horrible.
far enough to not have a happy ending.
Yeah.
And we also left off with James Arthur Ray doing his weird culty stuff, and he was seriously distancing himself from her death, and he was just trying to disassociate as much as possible, which unfortunately kind of worked, because it doesn't seem like he had to take any sort of responsibility as far as I could find. There were no charges that held up against him, other than sending like a little like I'm sorry type, not even I'm sorry for your loss type of card to the family. That was it. There wasn't really any sort of civil charges that I could find, and if they were not public.
Okay,
but
this is
go for it.
Probably a controversial opinion, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to say this without sounding heartless.
No, I think I know where you're going, and I was actually going to bring that point up next.
Okay, I don't think he's really responsible for her death,
and that's kind of what the police thought during the investigation as well.
Okay,
because
I feel bad saying that, because I think he had maybe a part in it. Like he claimed to be helping her when he wasn't authorized or had the education or the know-how to help her.
Right.
And maybe he was doing just the opposite and actually hurting her. But she took her own life.
Right.
He did not push her off, that we know, at least.
Yeah, and that's kind of how the police felt. And I think I mean, I don't know the specifics of laws regarding that, but if you remember, do you remember I have her name in here, the death of Conrad Roy and his girlfriend Michelle Carter?
I know those names.
Okay, so it was a super kind of scandalous case where she was text messaging. These were both teenagers.
Yes, yep. Yeah.
And she told him
to kill himself.
She
absolutely had a part in that.
Right.
100%. She was totally disgusting and calling him a pussy and saying, do it. And yeah,
I don't know if she called him a pussy.
No, she did.
Did she really?
I read the whole text message thread.
Oh, wow.
It was something like, don't be a pussy. You can do this. Stay in the car. Don't get out of the car. Like, I mean, it was disgusting.
Right.
She was horrible.
So the reason I bring up that example is because she very much said, do this, do this, do this. And even so, it was a very controversial case because you're still not physically full on making somebody do something against their own free will.
Right.
So that's where it gets like into a sticky situation.
Right. He could have stopped. He could have gotten out of the car. He could have blocked her number, but she, which she did get charged. She did get convicted. Yep.
She was telling him do it.
Yeah.
And nobody in the Ray, whatever you want to call it, cult told her to do it.
Right.
So that's where it is kind of like, okay, well, you can't, even though, yes, he most definitely had some sort of influence, you can't make him responsible.
No, that's kind of what I was trying to say without sounding heartless.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I have a few other examples because it is a really like controversial situation, because if you look at this is kind of the other thing that popped in my mind when I was reading about this. If you go to a bar, right, and you get super drunk, the bartender overserves you, you go out, get in a car accident and kill yourself or somebody else, the bar still does have to take some sort of responsibility.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So if you look at it from that perspective, the bartender didn't force you to take those extra shots. The bartender didn't tell you to get in your car and be irresponsible and drive. Yet there still is a law that in most states, it's known as the DRAM, D-R-A-M, DRAM shop laws, which imposes criminal penalties and or civil liability when a bartender continues to serve a patron who is already drunk. If that patron leaves and causes an injury to others, at least partly, they are responsible. So if you look at it from that perspective, does that make you think any differently?
I don't know. It's really hard because, like, what about someone who commits murder, but they were getting therapy? Is the therapist at fault because they didn't fix them? Or call, police and say, this guy I feel is dangerous, but he hasn't done anything.
I think they do have to do that. I think if they do give any sort of indication that if they are going to cause harm to themselves or others, they do have to call the police.
Well, I know as a teacher, you're a mandated reporter. So if I ever hear of a student that is being abused, I am mandated by law to report that. Same thing if they're going to hurt themselves.
Okay.
I can get into a lot of trouble. But if someone is getting therapy and maybe they've got the therapist totally fooled, maybe the therapist doesn't have any idea that this person's going to go out and murder someone, but they do. Is that therapist liable? Or should they be?
Well, I think it's different because I think somebody who is a bartender or doing something like this James Ray guy he is influencing their behavior. Where a therapist isn't necessarily influencing the behavior, right? They're more reacting. They're talking you through what's already there.
Maybe they're,
I don't know.
Giving them coping mechanisms that aren't working. I don't know. But again, okay, let's go to a bar. How many times have you had drinks bought for you and get trashed?
But I've also had drinks bought for me and I got trashed, but I still was told to leave.
I've
been cut off.
I've been, kicked out of a couple bars myself. But that was, it's rare that the bartender is actually the one getting me the drinks.
Yeah.
It's usually someone else getting them for me.
That's true.
So but I don't know. I'm just looking at this from every possible angle.
Okay, well, let me give you another angle. Because the James Ray Foundation didn't serve alcohol, but what they did do was serve sleep deprivation. So,
which I know of a couple of people that have had sleep deprivation and they full on hallucinate.
Okay.
Like hallucinate.
Yeah. Because according to the Dana Foundation, sleep deprivation makes us moody, irritable, and impairs brain function such as memory and decision making. It also negatively impacts the rest of your body. It impairs the functioning of the immune system and makes us more susceptible to infection. So brain imaging now can show how sleep deprivation affects brain function, which shows an altered connection between the prefrontal cortex and the brain's reward and emotion processing centers, impairing executive function. So as a result, we become hypersensitive to the reward stimuli, and our emotions become super heightened, and we start acting irrationally.
I totally got that. Those were a lot of really smart words, and I totally understood it.
But doesn't it sound a lot like being super drunk?
Absolutely. Yeah. Or high, or yeah, you're not making decisions based on reality. Not reality. It's not the word I want to say. But
It's like,
you're not making good, normal decisions.
right. It's like, at what point is your free will no longer there?
Mm-hmm.
Like, at what point has somebody manipulated your normal functioning to where it's like, well, now you're kind of responsible for the way I'm functioning.
Because you have deprived me of sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
So,
you've given me 5 too many drinks or whatever.
so yes, I do agree that, like you said, it is ultimately her decision and nobody made her do that. But in a way, if you start looking a little bit deeper into it, it's like, well, maybe there's an argument there.
Well, and we don't know what had happened right before she jumped, correct? We do know that there was a tox screen done and there was no drugs in her system. Is that correct?
Right.
But do we know about her being sleep deprived?
Well, we know that that was a practice that they did. Yes.
We don't know if it happened.
I'm pretty sure it did happen at that time. Yeah.
Okay, well then, yeah.
So I don't know.
I
It's
mean,
just a really sticky situation. And I think that maybe with and who knows, like he probably has some super high up lawyers who could throw around a lot of technical language and money to prevent anything from going further, because he has to protect his reputation and protect this empire that he's built.
well, he had people calling, knowing that she was dead, asking for her and saying they were worried about her.
Yeah.
That's gross.
It's super gross. Like, you can't deny that that's seriously fucked up.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not she would have done that with or without him, that's super fucked up.
Yeah, I feel like almost those people should have had some kind of charges, like trying to falsify life or something. I don't know. I don't know what you would put that under.
I see where you're going, but okay. Let's fast forward a little bit to October. So Colleen passed away in July. This is only a few months later, same year. So James Arthur Ray didn't waste any time getting back to his spiritual warrior retreats. And he was hosting another 5-day retreat that was for the people at the very, very tip top of his pyramid. And this was the Spiritual Warrior event that was held annually at the Angel Valley Retreat Center near Sedona. And this had been going on every year since 2003. So, like, it wasn't the first time he had done this.
Okay. Is it a year? You said it was a yearly event?
Yeah, it was an annual thing.
So, like, they pumped it up, made it a big, huge.
I'm sure. With a big, huge price tag, too. So, if you were going to go to this 5-day retreat, it was going to cost you $10,000.
No way.
And that doesn't even include your travel expenses.
Who can afford that?
People who are super, super invested in this cult. Like, they are diehards.
Okay, because like Stagecoach, Coachella, Burning Man, I mean, those are all multiple day festivals.
Right.
And you don't get, depending on which like ticket you don't get like a whole lot. You know, you get somewhere to sleep maybe. But I feel like the most expensive ticket I ever saw for any of those was maybe like $3,000. And that's like the VIP elite.
Oh, I have no idea. I'm always a general admission type of girl.
Totally. Grass seats.
Definitely, yeah. But yeah, so this is
$10,000.
$10,000. And you have your glass of flat champagne there. So go ahead and take a little sip. Every time I mention something that sounds a little bit cultish for this $10,000 retreat. So day one, you get there. You're pumped. You're going to be a spiritual warrior. First step is shave your head.
Oh, no. My drink's going to be gone. It's gone.
So then the next thing that they did is they played a game inspired by good old Tom Cruise called The Last Samurai.
Okay, so that's Scientology.
Take a sip.
Are you going to tell me how to play this game?
Oh, yeah. So in this game, they require one person to play the part of God. Guess who plays that part?
Does Tom Cruise make an appearance?
No, unfortunately.
So then it would be Mr. Ray.
Still Mr. Ray. So he was dressed in a white robe, and no one was permitted to speak to him. The staff played the angels.
That's not a very good God. If I'm going to play God, like everyone should be able to talk to me, right?
No, he's above all of
Didn't
you.
they ever watch like Bruce Almighty? They get all those emails.
No, that sounds like a much more fun movie to model their retreat after, but instead it was a Tom Cruise movie.
Okay.
And the staff was, they played the Angels of Death. So they, yeah. It's funny, but it's like not funny at all.
Am I not supposed to laugh?
Remember, people die.
I'm very uncomfortable right now.
Okay. So they dressed in black lipstick and dressed as the Grim Reapers. I don't really know what it involves, but I imagined it's like people hitting each other with like wooden machetes or something. Okay. What?
I'm just thinking of like what people wear at other festivals, like fairy wings and glitter.
That sounds way more fun.
Not Grim Reaper outfit.
Yeah. So as a participant of the Last Samurai game, you learned multiple ways on how to kill yourself.
Oh, no.
And once you were dead, you had to lie on the ground still. And during this game, they actually, I guess they really did hit each other because people ended up getting hurt, but it was like a fairly minor injuries, and they just kind of continued to participate in this retreat.
Like a war reenactment type thing.
I guess so.
When you die, you like lay there and
until
the game is over.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
So there is a blogger, her name is Julie, and she has a blog called Web Current VIP. And she actually went to this retreat the year before, and she kind of described a little bit more about what they did. So she says, quote, "We didn't know exactly what awaited us, but we knew it would be a challenge. And the event was designed to help push you beyond your self-imposed limits. We were asked later not to reveal the workshop's actual activities so as not to spoil the experience for next year's group," which to me sounds like don't tell people that like this is a really shitty event for $10,000.
Yeah. Normally people want to like pump it up like, oh my gosh, this was so much fun. We did this and this and this. I can't wait to go back next year.
And take all the pictures for your Instagram and whatever.
Put a good filter on it.
So following the samurai game, get ready for your drink because
it's empty already.
The followers were set on a vision quest. And a vision quest consisted of a 2-night stay alone in the desert with no electronics, no shelter, no food, no water, and no light except for the full moon. So that involved a 36 to 48 hour fast.
So just go off and find like a rock to hang out on for 2 days?
But pay $10,000 to do it. $10,000.
After you shaved your head.
Oh, man. Imagine the sunburn.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Huh. Nope. I wouldn't attend this.
No. Okay. So the following day would be the last day of the retreat. And they had one.
This is all they've done for these days?
I guess there was like a lot of lectures. You listen to Ray talk about himself a lot.
And his white robe. But you can't talk to him.
I guess not. I mean, it sounds super gimmicky, but
it sounds horrible.
It really does. It sounds like hell.
Yeah, this is not a fun thing.
Imagine how many nice restaurants, delicious food, like massages, amazing, I don't know, hotel stays, like at an actual resort you could go to with $10,000.
Yeah, $10,000 can buy you a lot.
But no, you have a shaved head. You got the shit beat out of you with the fucking wooden sword. And now you have to lay in the desert with no food, no water,
no shelter.
no shelter.
Just so your
be out there.
New scalp is frying.
Mm-hmm.
And you paid for all
Probably
of this.
no sunblock.
Uh-uh.
Okay. So your last day.
Oh, God.
Your very last day. When you have the final spiritual warrior challenge. They had a ceremony, and Ray told his followers that this final test would be painful. And it would feel as if you were dying. And that is because you are.
Oh, okay.
You will die and be reborn as a spiritual warrior.
Get Ripple.
Okay, let's get back into it. We had to stop, take a little break because we got distracted. Also, we totally forgot to mention that I didn't bring my drink that I had planned for tonight.
But what did I do?
But Rosa had us covered because
good.
she has little shooters of Fireball whiskey and
Jim Beam Fire, Kentucky.
yeah, coincidentally, both involving fire.
Mm-hmm.
Not planned, but totally appropriate.
I thought it'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I figured since you brought the drink last week, I would bring something this week to contribute.
Worked out. We
Okay.
have little shooters and flat champagne.
Yum.
So, okay, this last painful, horrible ceremony, spiritual warrior bullshit. Okay. So, all of the followers were going to obviously spend this time in a sweat lodge and have some sort of spiritual rebirth. And there was approximately 50 people that were all going to be huddled together in this 450 square foot sweat lodge.
Was it 50 people that attended the
Event itself?
Uh-huh.
Approximately, yeah.
Okay. I was envisioning like 500 people.
Oh, no.
So it was a smaller group to begin with.
The very tip top of the pyramid.
Which actually probably is more influential because, like, if you're in a small group, then you're going to be singled out more for not wanting to participate. Wherein if there is 500 people, you could probably escape into the shadows a little bit easier.
That's very true. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, you're totally like more noticed when you perform well and when you perform bad. Whereas in, like you said, a large group, you'd just get lost in the crowd and you wouldn't have that pressure
So
to
a
perform
smaller
as
group,
much.
he's actually got more power in a smaller group.
A little bit more intimate.
Mm-hmm.
So 450 square feet, not very big. So that is what?
I think I just slurped in the microphone as I'm taking my shot.
So it's about half the size of a single wide trailer. Yeah.
Wait, 50 people in a single wide trailer size.
A lot of people. So many people that there was like this fire pit in the middle where they had all the hot stones.
Mm-hmm.
And then they formed like a ring around it, all shoulder to shoulder. And then they had more people. So they had a second ring around those people, all shoulder to shoulder.
And what are they doing?
So they're all sitting around these hot stones.
Okay.
And the people who are in the inner circle are touching the knees and like leaning back on the knees of the people in the outer circle. So
Okay.
that's how crammed in they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in this sweat lodge that was thrown together. Like they paid some people to put it together that day. And this might be the pictures that you saw.
It looked like you know when you're in preschool and you have like the parachute game.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like that, but not beautiful rainbow colors.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good description. So it was like that, but they had like supporting sticks that held it up.
Yeah, it was like some kids had built a tent out of a giant parachute.
And then they draped tarps over the top of it too. So just like, yeah, they just threw a bunch of tarps.
It was like, yeah, like kids building, you know, when you build
Very
a fort.
makeshift.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no ventilation at all. Very important thing to note about this, except the little flap that was the door. While the session was going on, the only time that door was open was every 15 minutes to bring in more hot stones. so that they would keep that heat going.
Okay, I was going to ask, like, how would the fire remain burning or heat if there was no air?
Right. So the fire was either lit ahead of time, and then you just have like the hot coals afterwards.
Okay.
Or, which I think is what they did in this case, they had a fire on the outside that was heating up these rocks, and then they would bring these hot rocks, these hot stones inside of the sweat lodge.
So it's like a sauna.
Totally. And then they would take like ladles of water and put it over.
Steam.
And the steam would disperse the heat all throughout.
Okay, I don't know. I guess the pictures I saw of the stones, I thought it was a fire originally.
And it may have been.
But-
and they may have built it around a fire, but then they continually brought in more.
Okay, so more like a sauna at the gym.
Right. So they all went in the lodge. And
Lodge. Don't call it a lodge. It's not a lodge. A lodge is a place where you can get some like hot chocolate.
I was just thinking that. And look at the pretty snow on the
Yeah,
outside and sit
no.
by a nice fire.
This is not a lodge. This
Maybe
is
have a croissant.
A croissant. This is something that your mom gave you some nasty old rags and sheets and told you to go outside and build a fort.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they go in. They feel the heat. They're faced with the challenge of withstanding this heat and getting all sweaty and gross and chanting together.
What
and
are they chanting?
I don't know. I really wanted to find out, but apparently he had them chanting stuff. Probably stuff to stroke his ego.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, okay. So they're in there. Every 15 minutes, they're bringing in new hot stones. An hour goes by. That sounds awful to me. I don't think I've ever sat in a sauna more than like 10 minutes.
Well, you're not supposed to.
Well, this is a long time.
Yeah.
So after an hour, people begin vomiting, gasping for air, and collapsing. Yet Ray continually urged everyone to stay inside.
Okay. So you're in your little circle.
Mm-hmm.
And your buddy over here leaning up against your knees has started vomiting.
Oh, God.
So you are now not only hot and sweaty and dehydrated and everything, but you are now smelling someone else's vomit.
Oh, God.
I mean,
I didn't even think about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's awful. That's really awful. And you have to consider, too, that they haven't had anything to eat for however many days.
well, at least what, 2 you said? 2
Yeah.
days out in the desert with no food or water.
Mm-hmm.
There's people passing out around you.
Yep.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, sounds like a great time. So one participant actually, I don't know if he was getting up because he wanted to get out, because they weren't forced to stay in there. They could get out anytime
But
they
they're
wanted.
peer pressure bullied
Exactly.
into staying.
So something happened and he actually tripped and fell onto the hot stones and burned his arm. So he crawls out of the tent.
No one's helping him?
Well, I'll get there.
Okay.
And there's staff who were outside, and they were like stationed outside in case anything went wrong, like just to be on staff. And one of the staff members named Martin describes that his skin was gone. The skin was just basically hanging off of his elbow. And then she remembers, Martin, by the way, is a female.
Oh.
I was trying to take care of him, and his entire mindset was just obsessed with getting back in there. He said, I'm not done. I have to go back in. And he went back in.
Oh, that makes me sad.
It's fucked up. It is seriously fucked up. So between rounds, like I said, every 15 minutes, the staff is bringing in new stones. And while they were bringing them in, one of the staff member describes, quote, "It just looked like these people had been hit by a car or something. I mean, they were just there inside, laying on their sides, barely breathing. It was unbelievable. I've never seen so many people in such bad condition."
That's really horrible.
It is really horrible. But then you have to think, how brainwashed is the staff
To not...
continue to bring in these stones and to not just be like, all right, we're done.
I don't want to
Or,
work here anymore.
I'm going to leave, or I'm going to call for help.
This is not going well.
But they're so loyal and so dedicated that they just keep on doing it.
Well, they make phone calls to a dead girl's cell phone as well.
Yep.
I can't get those calls out of my head. Like
Yeah.
that's
and after
horrible.
listening to the actual call, oh my God, that's fucked up. Okay. So those still inside of the sweat tent tried to remain positive and heed Ray's catchphrase, which was play full on. Basically, like, if you're going to do it full on.
Okay.
Okay. So people were coming out screaming.
But you're not playing, but go on.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so another staff member, Brandy Amstill, she describes people were coming out screaming, saying things like, I'm dying, please don't let me die.
Oh my gosh.
So at this point, about an hour and a half in, people are actually like, they can't hang anymore. They're coming out. But Ray responded to them, you're more than that. You can push through this.
He's in there with them?
He's in there with them.
Okay.
He's conveniently sitting, I guess, closest to the door.
Oh, imagine that.
Uh-huh. So outside the sweat tent, Amstel saw somebody come out and collapse on the ground. And she was told by Ray to stay back, like stay away from her. And they said to her, you need to leave her alone. This is her experience. You don't want to intrude on her experience. So you just need to sit there and be quiet.
But they're supposed to be there to help them, I thought.
Well, it was part of their experience. I guess that wasn't helping them to carry out their experience, even though this girl's
on
like
the ground,
literally dying in front of them. So many still inside the lodge disregard what their own bodies were telling them. Among them was Kirby Brown. The investigators later told Brown's mother that her daughter had been in distress for some time before she was finally removed from the tent. So during these sessions, somebody called out, Kirby isn't breathing.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. Kirby is really having trouble breathing, she said. Ray responded, we will deal with that at the end of the next round.
How long did he anticipate staying in this tent?
It was supposed to be a total of 7 rounds, I think. But he ended up doing an extra one because he lost count.
And each round lasts
15 minutes.
Okay, so okay, got it. Okay.
So how many is that?
But they don't go out and get fresh air.
No, so they get fresh air
only when the door opens.
Opening, but at the same time more heat is coming in.
Right.
Yeah, so it was 2 hours.
Almost, okay, 2 hours.
But I don't think for whatever reason, I don't think it was supposed to be 2 hours.
Okay. I was just curious how long he wanted this to last.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing, but regardless, too long.
Yeah.
Just the answer is too long. But like, okay, so you mentioned this last week when I first told you about the sweat lodge at the very, very beginning. Mm-hmm. You're like, that's the temperature to cook cookies.
Uh-huh.
So imagine
cooking cookies for 2 hours.
2 hours. That's like burning cookies. I mean, I don't know a lot about baking, but I don't think those cookies would be good anymore.
That would be like charcoal cookies, hockey puck cookies, burned to a crisp cookies.
All right. So poor Kirby was in distress, barely breathing, and eyewitnesses say it wasn't until about 20 minutes later that Kirby was finally carried out. By then, she was completely unresponsive.
Oh, no.
It's so sad. So they did have a retired nurse who was there.
Like as a participant?
It's unclear. I don't know. She was part of the group in some way, whether she was a participant or she was a part of the staff. She was there, and she did actually go and start giving her CPR. Mm-hmm. But when Brown saw that this was happening, he didn't want to help her. Like, he was kind of like...
Brown or Ray?
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. Ray. So when he saw this, he saw that she was getting CPR. He saw that she was being pulled out of the tent. And he just like kind of continued on the exercise, like whatever, I'm just going to keep doing my thing. She's going to have her experience.
You deal with her.
So the entire sweat lodge session lasted 2 hours and resulted in more than 24 serious injuries and 3 deaths.
That's over half of the participants.
I didn't even think about that, but you are very, very right. Well, a little less than half. You're not very, very right. You're almost right.
No, 24 plus 3. And there were 50 participants, right?
Oh, yeah, you are right.
Look at me doing math in my head.
I don't know why, but I read it. Like I said 24, but in my head, I read it as 20.
It's okay.
You're right.
I'll forgive you.
You're very right, big sister. So, okay, when it was finally over and Ray came out of his sweat lodge, he acted as like if nothing really happened. He was just completely unaware of the severity of the entire situation. He got up, he stretched, he hosed himself off to like cool off, and he saw Kirby getting CPR, and he just kind of like walked over and just kind of stared. And he looked at what was going on, didn't offer to help, didn't say anything at all, and then he just left.
Nice.
So this is just like a complete like triage chaos scene going on. And he leaves. So paramedics arrive. They wonder if they've stumbled upon like a mass suicide cult.
Does it say who actually called paramedics in?
It doesn't. It does say
I would like to hear that phone call.
Yeah. I bet that's out there. I bet we could find it.
Like I wonder if the person was freaking out and scared, or if they were like, oh, this person might need some help because they're so brainwashed themselves.
Right. Okay, so Rosa and I both looked for the 911 call to play for you guys, but we couldn't find it anywhere.
Just like clips, like
Yeah.
in super short little clips. And it's weird because normally that kind of thing is really easily accessible, and which makes me think maybe the police didn't release the whole thing.
Or maybe it's since been removed by lawyers and
but
such.
that's really hard to do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. But obviously somebody did call 911.
And the little clip that we did hear, the person did sound scared.
Yeah,
They were
freaked out.
They weren't downplaying it at all.
Which, I mean, the way it's described, it sounds like zombies are crawling out of that tent. Like people are not well. Okay. So I told you that Kirby was getting CPR, and according to eyewitnesses, that James was like standing over them and not really doing anything, and he seemed to not really be aware, or maybe he was in a state of shock of the severity of what had just happened. Okay. And he leaves. So paramedics arrive, and then of course police arrive to figure out what the hell is going on. And Ray is found later on by police in his room, and he's just in his room at the resort.
Wait, he got a room, and while everyone else is spending 2 days in the wilderness?
Well, he's probably already a spiritual warrior. He probably doesn't need to hang out in the desert.
So he's just chilling at like a legit resort.
I assume so.
What
the
an
way
ass.
it's described. So he's eating, and police go to question him, and apparently he refused to cooperate with police. And from the articles I read, it didn't really go into detail on like how he refused to cooperate, but like he just was not cooperating. And within a few hours, he leaves the state.
Oh, well, that's not a sign of guilt.
And at this time, 20 of the followers were still being treated for medical problems.
That is horrible.
Okay. But maybe he had reason to leave the state, because 5 days later, he had another public speaking engagement.
Somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
In a different state?
Apparently. And by this time, Kirby Brown, James Shore, 40. Kirby's age. She was young. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's horrible regardless, but I don't have Kirby's age here. She passed away. James Shore, 40, passed away. And then about a week later, 49-year-old Liz Newman.
A week later?
Yeah, she was actually in a coma.
Oh, no.
I know. It's really, really awful. And then I read some bits and pieces that James Shore, who passed away, he was actually going into the tent and continuously pulling more people out until he just physically couldn't do it anymore.
So he was hot himself,
mm-hmm.
and then he saw people that were needing help.
Yeah.
And he jumped into action.
Right. That's what it sounds like. And I can't really verify that.
So he died a hero.
Oh, absolutely. So 5 days later, like I said, the speaking tour continues. And of course, once these news stories come out, he starts getting all kinds of criticism. So a couple weeks later, he has to cancel the rest of his seminars until he figures out what to do. Of course, he lawyers up, and then he goes to Twitter. And yeah, as you do. And obviously, like, that's his go-to because that's what he did when Colleen passed away too.
Oh, that's right.
But he goes to Twitter and he starts saying, like, oh my gosh, this is just such a horrible tragedy. These people were my friends. I just don't understand how it happened, and I'm going to search for answers.
No, you're not. You
So he's
caused
playing
these
dumb.
problems.
All right. So luckily, in February, James Ray, I know I keep going back and forth, but the guy has 3 first names, and you can never trust somebody who has that many first names. It's always a bad sign. So luckily, James Arthur Ray was charged with 3 counts of manslaughter for his role in the death of Kirby Brown, James Shore, and Liz Newman. So he was charged with these 3 counts of manslaughter, but once he went to trial, which the trial ended up lasting a year, because as you can imagine, it's like what we were saying earlier, like it's a very sticky situation when people do still have their free will to leave. But luckily, he was convicted. They actually decided on a lesser charge, which was negligent homicide, after this year-long trial. And he served time at the Arizona Department of Corrections from November 22nd, 2011 to July 12th, 2013. So that is about 2 years, not
Give or
quite 2
take.
years. So he actually was able to serve all these sentences concurrently. And I don't remember. I want to say that it was 2 years per individual, and he was allowed to serve it concurrently. Does that make sense? Does that sound?
He only served 2 years.
Basically.
But he kind of got charged with 6 years, but was able to serve
it all together.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of shitty. Like, how do you feel about that?
I don't like it. I still go back and forth. I believe these people were totally brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I also, however, believe that people have free will. And I just wish that their families or whatever could have maybe stopped them from going in the first place.
But would you ever imagine, like, if anybody told you, like, oh, I'm going on this mission trip.
Mm-hmm.
You went out of the country
multiple times
mm-hmm. on religious experience type
mm-hmm.
trips. And none of us, none of your family, none of your friends would have ever expected that it would result in something like this.
Yeah, I know. Oh, it's really a hard one for me. I go back and forth because he didn't force them like in the sicko that made the kids drink poison.
Oh yeah, Jamestown.
In Jamestown, he didn't force them to ingest a poison, knowing that they would die. He did, however, tell them to stay in an unsafe environment and kind of like ridiculed them if they wanted to leave. So I mean, he obviously, in my mind, has a huge part in their death. Absolutely. Uh-huh. Did he cause their death? Partially.
Okay.
Did he commit murder? No.
Okay. That's fair enough. I'm going to talk a little bit more about...
I feel really bad saying that.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get it. And I'll go a little bit more as part of my ripple is kind of the psychology behind this.
Am I going to get hate mail for saying that?
No, I don't think you will, because I think we have a pretty good explanation for like psychologically how this thing happened.
Okay.
So let me tell you a little bit more about the details of the trial and how that panned out. And then I'll tell you a little psychology, and then I'll tell you what he's up to today.
Oh, okay. I want him to be in jail for a long, long time. I really do. I don't think he should be out.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, he was released and he was placed on parole. He also was ordered to pay $57,000 in restitutions to the families of the 3 victims.
That's not enough.
No, not when you're charging $10,000
Per person.
per person to sleep and not feed them out in the desert. But so like you were saying, there's free will, but is there really? Or is free will a myth? Rosa.
Oh, no.
Have you ever heard of the Milgram experiment?
Mm-mm.
All right. So the Milgram experiment was conducted back in 1961. And the purpose of the experiment, and this is going to get kind of dark, was to determine how, during the Holocaust, people could be instructed to essentially exterminate Jewish people.
Yeah.
Like kind of trying to understand how you could convince somebody to follow those orders and
Not question them.
be okay with it.
So gross.
So I have a little clip here. It's about 2 minutes long, and it describes exactly how this Milgram experiment was conducted. And I feel like it would do a much better job than I would do trying to like regurgitate Wikipedia to you. So I'm going to play it, and then we can talk about it afterwards. Okay, you ready?
Ready. Kind of.
Okay, here we go.
A decade earlier, psychologist Stanley Milgram had also looked at how we respond to authority. In order to understand how people were induced to obey unjust regimes and participate in atrocities such as the Holocaust, he set up an experiment. Volunteers were told they were taking part in scientific research to improve memory.
Would you open those and tell me which of you is which, please? Teacher. Where? Teacher.
Separated by a screen, the teacher would ask the learner questions in a word game and administer an electric shock when the answer was incorrect. He was told to increase the voltage with each wrong answer.
Cloud. Horse. Rock. House. Answer. Wrong. 150 volts. Answer. Horse.
Experiment. That's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right on.
I refuse to go in. Let me out.
Refuses to go on. The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor and the so-called shocks harmless.
You're gonna get a shock. 180 volts.
I can't stand the pain. Let me out of here.
Stand it. I'm not gonna kill that man, eh? I mean, who's gonna take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman? I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please. All right, next one. Slow. Walk, dance, truck, music. And
2/3 of volunteers were prepared to administer a potentially fatal electric shock when encouraged to do so by what they perceived as a legitimate authority figure. In this case, a man in a white coat.
375 volts. I think something's happened to that fellow in there. I don't get no answer. He was hollering with less voltage. Can't you check in to see if he's all right, please?
Milgram's findings horrified America. They showed that decent American citizens were as capable of committing acts against their conscience as the Germans had been under the Nazis.
Oh, that is terrible.
Isn't it?
Terrible.
So can you kind of describe, because you got to see like the video a little bit, like what was going on? I don't know if it's going to translate as well as just being audio, but...
Well, the man that was pushing the button to administer the shocks, he was a little distraught. He didn't want to do it anymore. But because, like they said, the man in the white coat was telling him, it's like, fine, I'm taking responsibility. He's an authoritative figure.
Mm-hmm.
The man pushing the button, actually giving the shocks, was like, fine, I'll do it. But he didn't want to. You could tell. He's like, I don't want to be responsible for this. This man is not okay. But the white coat guy was like, it's fine, just do it. Please continue with the experiment.
Right. And it is a little bit different because in this particular experiment, they're talking about administering harm to another individual. But in our case, we're talking about maybe doing things against your own conscience that would cause yourself harm. But I feel like if you can that easily manipulate somebody to hurt somebody else, then it would be even easier to do something that would hurt you.
I think so.
Like, I feel like that's just kind of a natural response. Like, it's easier to hurt yourself than it is to hurt somebody else.
I think so.
And then when you compound that with the sleep deprivation, the restriction of food and water,
being in the elements,
all of those other things, that like group thinking and all of those other aspects to it, it's like no wonder cults are so fucked.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, you're paying all this money. There's this person who
you have that financial investment.
Well, and then there's that guy you just have or person that you have on such a high pedestal that you don't want to disappoint. And why? Why don't you want to disappoint him? Like, who cares?
Yeah. For sure.
It is very interesting psychology.
Yeah, it's fucked.
It's horrible.
Seriously fucked up.
It really is.
I'm gonna drink more of my drink.
Mine's gone. Both of mine are gone. I had to finish mine. That was very hard to listen to.
All right. Well, it gets worse.
Oh, yay.
Okay, because on July 12th of 2013, Ray was granted supervised release and left the state prison near Phoenix, where he had served his sentence.
Okay. That's okay. And maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that Arizona, of all of like the U.S. states, had one of the more strict jail sentencing.
Yeah, I kind of think they do.
Isn't that the one where that one guy like had all of his inmates just wear pink?
Yeah,
and
sheriff, I don't remember. Yeah, they lived out in a camp. It wasn't even an actual prison. They were out on a camp, and he made them wear pink, and he had, because they were like required federally to have access to television. So he had like TVs mounted on big posts, and the only thing that they could watch was the Weather Channel, so they knew how hot it was going to be.
And there was something, he did like 3 or 4 different things that I was just like, this is how a prison should be.
Right?
I'm all about that.
The bologna sandwiches. He had like the lowest possible cost for food. It's like, okay, this fits all of the federal nutritional requirements, and it's a bologna sandwich on white bread.
Yeah.
No, he got in all kinds of shit. People did not like him.
Oh, I would have voted for him.
I think he's just fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something we missed that was like a little fucked up, but I'm cool with them
you
camping.
land yourself in prison.
See, okay, you could have saved $10,000. You could have committed some like harmless crime, gotten yourself thrown into this tent prison, and you would have saved, you would have saved so much money.
And you could wear pink all day.
And you could actually eat.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, unfortunately, Ray today lives in Los Angeles.
What?
Where he is working on a book along with an online learning platform.
He lives by us?
Yeah, I think he still does.
Let's find out where he lives. And
let's not, because I feel like he's going to sue us.
Oh. And not egg his car or house.
He doesn't deny anymore that the sweat lodge incident should be a part of his story forever. He said that the biggest error he made was participating himself.
What?
Yeah, he felt that he should have been like outside of the participants, and like he should have been supervising, which like, yeah, he probably should have, but at the same time, he probably shouldn't have done it at all. He's made some really disgusting talks that you can unfortunately find clips of on YouTube, where he almost uses his story to propel his platform even more.
It doesn't surprise me.
So he's kind of saying, look, I got sent to prison. I'm such a victim, and I am now overcoming that challenge as well, because that's how great I am.
I don't know what a good punishment for this man would be. I really don't. I don't feel that he should be allowed to write a book and tell his story and be profiting off of some horrible tragedies, as well as possibly gaining more cult members.
Dude, I don't know. It's fucked though. But like he says, quote, Sure, we were doing something extreme, but extreme athletes in our country are heroes. And I believe that Liz, James, and Kirby are heroes.
Oh, that's gross.
Isn't that so disgusting and slimy?
And I'm sorry, but those athletes work up to...
It's not even a comparison.
No, it's really
It's not. It's not even, like, it. You can't stretch it in any way. It's not. He says that he hopes the public will see his return as a challenge that he has overcome as well. When I was looking up, trying to find that 911 call, I typed in his name into YouTube, and you'll be so happy to know that he actually just uploaded a motivational talk just last week about how to be wealthy in 2021.
No way.
Yep.
Does he have subscribers? Are there comments? Did you read them?
I don't know. Should I pull up?
Yeah.
Okay.
What does Oprah say about him?
You know, I'm not sure. I mean, she loved him back in the day. She had him on the show before all of this went down. I'm not sure if she ever came out and said anything after everything
Went down.
happened. All right, so he has 3.6 thousand subscribers, and his most recent video was 5 days ago, and he has a new series. I don't know how new it is, but I mean, or how long it's been going on, but his current series is called Redemption, and it's not doing too well.
Oh, good.
He's only had 35 views.
Oh, good. I mean, it's a lot of subscribers, but it's not that many subscribers.
No. Let me see if there's an yeah, his views are pretty low. I don't know. Like, okay, knowing everything that happened, do you think that he could redeem himself as a human?
As a human, sure. People make mistakes, and if they make some changes in their life, then absolutely, I believe that people can change. Should he be in the position that he's trying to get in again? No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think, like, if he had any sort of, I don't know what you would call it.
I don't know where you're going.
If he had humility.
You just want to say that word again.
No, if he had any sort of like, if he took accountability, and
which
full
he's not,
on, which he never really did. I don't think. And if he did, I feel like it was temporary and it was for
show.
Yeah. But no, he definitely shouldn't be in the public eye anymore. I think that if he were actually truly sorry, he would definitely take a step back from that.
I think so too. I think that if he were really sorry, he would be working with groups. If he wanted to stay in like the whole group situation, but groups to actually make people better.
Like, be a server for a while instead of a leader. Like, do things that hands-on.
He wants to serve. He wants to lead. He wants to be the highest of high.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the story. It's super fucked up. Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention. Can you hand me that paper? I just threw it on the ground before I finished reading. There's a really important ripple along with all the other ripples, which I feel is probably the most important thing of this entire talk, is that Kirby Brown's parents created this thing called Seek Safely. And the letters for Seek, stop laughing at me, stand for Self-Empowerment Through Education and Knowledge. And it's a nonprofit group that's a way for these self-help seminar treatment things to prove that they are practicing safety for their followers or their participants.
Okay.
And they are self-governing themselves to not do stupid shit like cooking people in a tent. And at this point, like, it's just voluntary. It's almost like if you have a certain seal, like, what's a good comparison? Like AKC approved. like American Kennel Club for dog products.
Sure.
So AKC isn't part of the government. It's its own organization. It's its own group. But when they put their stamp of approval on something, it means something and it gives it some sort of validity.
Sure.
And it's not as shady. So they're going around asking different health coaches, self-help groups, whatever, to participate and sign this pledge and say that you are going to abide by all of these
regulations.
Safety. Self-regulation practices that are not going to kill people.
Well, and that's, I mean, not to get political or anything, but I believe that's better than having the government have their hand in it with, I mean,
Absolutely.
not being having a clue onto what they're speaking about or trying to regulate.
Yeah.
I would much rather have it be self-regulated by people that actually know what they're talking about, know what they're dealing with, rather than someone who's not.
For sure.
And tell me the website again so we can, I'll put that in our show notes.
It is called Seek Safely. So it's the reason that they called it that was one thing that they said that Kirby always did was seek. She was always seeking to learn new things. She was always looking for the next adventure. She was really into surfing and horseback riding, and she called herself a warrior princess. And yeah, so she was always seeking. So that's where they came up with that acronym.
I like it.
Yeah. So it's a nice way to give her horrible, tragic death some sort of meaning, and hopefully it will save somebody else in the future.
Yeah, making some good out of bad.
Yeah. And that's what the Ripple Podcast is all about.
Making the good out of bad.
So after all of that, do you think that you have ever been involved in some kind of
cult?
Not necessarily cool, but I don't know, something like that could have potentially gone that way because you had one of those or many of those factors going on?
I don't think I personally have, but I will say that I am have more than once fallen into peer pressure.
Yeah, I think we all have.
And have been afraid to stand up for myself and gone along with the crowd. And if the crowd was in a sweat lodge and I was with that crowd, I may be one of those people to not get out because I didn't want to have someone say something to me or put me down or make fun of me or whatever.
Yeah. No, I totally see that. I think that probably happens more than, I mean, obviously not resulting in death that often, but, more than people think.
Do you think you were in a cult?
Do I think I was in a cult? I was in CrossFit. I am in CrossFit, so that's pretty much a cult.
How about my Peloton cult?
Yeah. The closest thing that I can think of that kind of went where it could have gone badly, that's kind of related to CrossFit because I think it's like owned by the same organization, was the Spartan race.
Oh, I love Spartan races.
And I love Spartan races too. I love it. I think it's so fun, and I encourage anybody, whoever.
They're very positive.
They really, really are. But they're also very, you get into this like kind of tribal mindset where you're like, yes, we're a team. We can do it. We can all do this together. And Adam and I went to the world champion, whatever, like the
series.
Yeah, the beast of, I don't know. It was essentially a half marathon.
For the trifecta.
But it was a Spartan race, and it's an obstacle race, so people who aren't familiar. And it was in Tahoe while it was snowing, and one of the obstacles was to swim across this lake. And that was like maybe halfway through the race, or maybe a little bit, I don't know. You still had several miles to go after you got out of the lake.
Swim.
And we got there and it was already snowing and we were already freezing our asses off. And we were like, no, we're not fucking swimming across that lake. Like, it's not going to happen. I don't care if I don't get the medal or whatever. They made you do like some penalty where you have to do like 30 burpees or something. But I could see how a lot of people would be pressured to get into that water.
I would have gotten the water.
And I will say that as we continued down the hill, we saw multiple medical units carting people away because they got, I don't know if they actually got hypothermia, but they got really fucking cold.
Well, your muscles
and really
tense
tired.
up. Yeah.
And they, luckily that it's staffed in such a way where they are
prepared for
stuff like that to happen. But yeah, I mean,
no,
that sort of stuff happens.
I would have probably given into the pressure and gone for it, and probably would have hurt myself.
Yeah.
The first time I did the LA Marathon, I had people telling me, like, you know, I worked on the EMT and I helped a lot of people that were not prepared to finish the entire race. And if you're feeling sick or if you're hurting, stop and just quit. There's no shame in quitting and trying again.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily I was able to finish. But I saw a man collapse, like full on collapse at the finish line.
Yeah.
Like yes, he finished, but paramedics had to come and get him at the finish line. So that is a very like a mob mentality almost.
Yeah.
You know, you feel the pressure of you paid, you know, this money to participate. You're going to get this reward at the end. There's all these people around you that are doing it too. And if they can do it, then you can do it. And there's all these other people cheering you on. It's very mob-ish, very cultish.
Yeah. And sometimes that can benefit you. And other times it can
harm you.
Yeah.
I feel like we got deep.
I was just going to say that. Like, this is the most intellectual ripple that we've ever rippled
on this Ripple pod. Okay, so I have a last thought and a shot for you. But you have to sing me a song.
Why?
Do it.
Last thought and a shot. Last thought and a shot. Dun dun da 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 da. Drink. You don't have anything left to drink, though.
I know. I'm all done.
I'm just about done. I have one little tiny sip of Fireball left.
Okay, so earlier today, you sent me an Instagram post. Or Eric did.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know I did, but I can't think of any Instagram post that would be relevant to what we're talking about.
It'll
now.
tie in.
Okay.
But do you remember that you sent me that they're filming a commercial or a movie or series around the corner pretty much from here? I think it's a TV series, right?
I don't know what it is. They're filming something here in Santa Paula.
Right. They're using like Old Town Santa Paula for their backdrop for something.
Yeah.
Who knows? So that got me to thinking like, oh, well, what have they filmed in Sedona? And I looked up like what's most recent, and there's a whole bunch of like pre-production. I mean, we all know that kind of movies are a little slow right now with the whole COVID stuff, but
I feel like they have a lot of exemptions.
They sure do. But the Real Patriot is supposed to be coming out pretty soon. Downstream, blah blah blah, a whole bunch of stuff I haven't heard of, and then stuff that has been completed in like 2020. None of them I have heard of.
Okay, this is fascinating, Rosa.
Right?
Thanks for sharing.
There's something called the White Buffalo, and I'm like, oh, that's a great band or singer or whatever. Totally not the right White Buffalo that I was thinking of.
Okay.
But have you ever heard of the Karate Kid?
I sure have.
1984, the original with Wax On, Wax Off.
Uh-huh.
Filmed in Sedona.
Okay.
National Lampoon's Vacation.
Oh.
1983. Sedona.
Sweet.
Then it goes into a bunch of stuff maybe other people have heard of, but not me.
Okay.
Starman, Breakdown, Midnight Run, Universal Soldier, Dead Man, Drumbeat, Wild America, Fire Creek. No. Death Valley Days. Wanna Dead or Alive, Private Lessons. No. Anyways. Karate Kid, National Lampoon's Vacation.
Wow.
Sedona, Arizona.
All right. Well, that was a nice little palate cleanser.
Oh, yeah. We needed it after that story. And then I need to pick for next time.
Week. It's your turn. You're up.
Okay.
Shake it up. Shake it up.
I am going to be visiting the lovely area of Ohio.
Oh, hi.
Oh.
It was the dumbest thing we've ever done on this podcast.
No, it probably isn't the dumbest.
Oh, man.
So I have friends that live in Ohio, and before they used to live in California, but before she left, she made me Buckeyes.
Oh, okay. One of us is making those next week.
Not me.
Why?
I don't know how to do that kind of stuff.
It's peanut butter and chocolate.
Okay, you're all over it.
Okay, I'm doing it.
And then I'm going to be telling you about Ohio and strange history.
I can't tell you any history about Ohio other than the Drew Carey show took place in Ohio.
Oh, yeah, Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland rocks.
They had Buzz beer. Remember the Buzz beer?
Yes.
Coffee and beer. Genius.
You should find that for our drink.
Oh, is that a thing?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely like coffee stouts and stuff.
Oh, there's coffee stouts.
Not that exact beer.
Well, yeah. But like a beer that gives you a buzz. I mean, like a coffee buzz.
Like a coffee buzz? No, I think Four Locos is the only thing that does that.
That's not legal anymore.
No, not the original recipe.
Four
anyway.
Locos.
Loco for Locos.
Okay, come on. Strange history, Ohio. And you're going to bring me some Buckeyes, and I'm going to bring you something good to drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us for 1 full year. And this is kind of a cool episode to do our full year with because it's our first two-parter. I like it.
Okay, cool.
Don't forget, everyone, to be a fountain.
And not a drain.
Bye, and don't drain any colts because they're scary and make you shave your head.
Don't do that.